Have you ever opened your closet and felt tired instead of inspired? I used to feel that way every single morning until I decided to clear out not just the stuff, but the reasons I was holding on to it. And what surprised me the most wasn't how much I had, but why I was still keeping almost all of it. In this video, I'm sharing 10 lessons that helped me declutter more gently, not just my wardrobe, but also my mind. This wasn't my first time trying to simplify, but it was the first time I truly understood why the overwhelm kept coming back. And if you're feeling weighed down by the mess around you, these shifts might bring some much-needed ease. The first tip starts in the easiest place and sets the momentum for everything that comes next. There was a time when I thought the only way to feel calm was to clean the whole house. But when you're already exhausted, that kind of thinking can make you shut down before you even begin. So let's start where it feels light, not your closet, not the kitchen. The first place I tackled was the bottom drawer in my bathroom, the one with half-used lotions, dried-up serums, and samples I never opened. It wasn't sentimental, it wasn't hard. I didn't have to debate with myself or feel guilty. Most of the stuff was expired or forgotten. 10 minutes in, I had a small trash bag filled and a strange sense of calm. Not because everything was perfect, but because something had finally moved. When you start with an area that has no emotional weight, you start to rebuild the muscle of decision-making. It could be the tech drawer with tangled chargers, the shelf under your sink, or the catch-all basket by the door. Somewhere small, somewhere doable. What matters is not how much space you clear, it's the shift from passive to active. From this is too much to, I just did something. And that momentum, you'll need it for what's next. Because as you start clearing physical space, you'll begin to notice something else. The people who live in tidy homes don't just declutter, they move through their day with different habits. Tiny, often invisible things that keep the mess from piling up in the first place. Tomorrow, I'll walk you through exactly what those habits look like. If you've ever wondered why some homes seem to stay clean without constant effort, that video will be for you, because next, we're going to face the clutter that hides in plain sight. Next, let's talk about a type of clutter that's quiet but persistent, the things you don't hate but haven't touched in months. I used to have a juicer that sat on my kitchen counter for 2 years. It wasn't broken, it wasn't ugly, but I never used it. Every time I tried to declutter, I'd tell myself, maybe one day I'll need it. Those maybe items are the ones that block real clarity. You don't use them, but you don't let them go either. And they quietly whisper every day, you haven't done enough. You're not living up to what you planned. So I started using a simple rule, 60 days. If I haven't used it in the last 60 days and can't name a specific reason I'll use it in the next 60, it no longer has a role in my current life. Not forever, just for now. I've used this rule on kitchen tools, skincare books, clothes, gadgets, and honestly, it's freeing. Because you don't have to decide whether to keep something forever. You just need to ask, is this helping me today? And the truth is, if something really matters, it won't stay forgotten for 60 days. In the next tip, we'll tackle a question that makes almost every declutter pause. But I paid good money for this. How can I just let it go? Now let's move to one of the most uncomfortable parts of decluttering, the money guilt. I used to hold on to things just because they were expensive. A dress I wore once, a serum I didn't love, a fancy planner I never opened. Every time I tried to let them go, this voice in my head would say, you spent good money on that. But then I started asking a different question, one that changed everything. Would I buy this again today at full price? Not did I pay a lot, or is it still worth something? Just would I spend money on this now, knowing what I know? And for most things, the answer was a quiet, honest no. That question helped me release so many items, not with guilt, but with clarity. Because the money's already spent. Keeping something you don't use doesn't bring the money back. It just turns the price into pressure. So now when I hesitate, I imagine seeing that exact item in a store right now for the same price. If I wouldn't buy it again, I don't need to keep it. And next, we'll look at another kind of clutter, one that multiplies, quietly duplicates. Let's move on to a type of clutter that's less about the item and more about who you hoped you'd be when you bought it. I used to keep clothes that didn't fit my life, a fitted blazer for a job I didn't want anymore, a cocktail dress for parties I never went to, yoga gear for a routine I never started. None of it reflected who I actually was, but I kept them because they represented a version of me I thought I should become. The truth, our homes often reflect our imagined lives more than our real ones, and that's where the disconnect starts. What helped me most was this shift. Instead of asking, "Do I like this?" I asked, "Does this belong in my actual life right now?" If I spend my days working from home, chasing kids, or just trying to get dinner on the table, then maybe 5 pairs of tailored trousers aren't serving me, and that's okay. Letting go of those fantasy items didn't mean giving up on growth. It just meant honoring the version of me who's here today and making space for what she actually needs. Coming up, we'll tackle one of the biggest space wasters in most homes' duplicates, the just-in-case twins we rarely reach for. Now let's talk about duplicates, the quiet clutter we barely notice. I used to have 4 black tank tops, 3 white button-down shirts, 2 nearly identical tote bags. Why? Because at the time it felt smart. If I like it, I'll buy a backup. Or worse, what if one gets ruined? But here's the truth, I kept reaching for the same 1 or 2 pieces anyway. The rest just sat there silently taking up space and reminding me of my own indecision. So I created a new rule for myself: 1 item, 1 roll, 1 place. If a shirt does the job well, I don't need 5 versions of it. If I have a favorite tote, that's the one I'll use. Everything else is just visual noise. Letting go of duplicates doesn't mean living with less. It means living with more clarity. You stop second-guessing. You stop digging. You start trusting your instincts again. And once you've cleared the extra copies, the next step is even more important: dealing with the items that aren't wrong, but aren't quite right either. Let's talk about those just okay pieces next. Let's talk about the pieces that don't spark guilt, but also don't spark joy. The ones you keep saying it'll do to. I used to open my closet and pass by the same tops over and over again. Not because they were ugly, not because they didn't fit, just because they were fine. They didn't excite me, but they also didn't feel bad enough to toss. And yet, those were the pieces that drained me most. Because every time I looked at them, I felt a tiny sense of settling, like I had to talk myself into wearing something I didn't really like. So I made a quiet promise: if something makes me hesitate more than once, it goes. No more justifying, no more maybe one day for the things that don't make me feel like myself. And you know what happened? My mornings got easier. I stopped changing outfits 3 times. I stopped wondering if I looked okay enough, because everything left in my closet was something I actually wanted to wear. Next, we're going to shift from decisions to reflection, because sometimes the hardest part of decluttering isn't the stuff. It's the story we're still telling ourselves about why we keep it. Now we're getting to the heart of why it's so hard to let go, not because we need the item, but because of what we've attached to it. I once kept a pair of heels I hadn't worn in 5 years. Not because they were comfortable, not because they matched anything, but because I bought them for a big job interview, and keeping them made me feel like I hadn't completely given up on that version of myself. So I started a habit: when I couldn't decide whether to keep something, I'd say out loud the real reason I was holding on to it. Because it was expensive. Because I feel guilty. Because I used to love it. Because it reminds me of who I thought I'd be. And somehow, just naming the reason helped loosen its grip. It gave me permission to say that chapter already taught me something. I don't need to keep the object to honor the experience. So if you're stuck on something, try this. Don't debate whether it's useful. Just ask, why am I really keeping this? Say it out loud. You might find it's not a reason you want to keep living with. Next, we'll shift toward building something new, starting with the pieces that already feel good and letting them guide what comes next. Let's shift from letting go to tuning in. Because sometimes the best way to simplify your wardrobe isn't by removing more, it's by noticing what you already reach for. I used to think I needed a capsule wardrobe, but the truth was I didn't even know what I liked. I'd buy what looked good on others, what fit the trend, what was on sale, but none of it felt like me. So instead of making another shopping list, I started a quiet experiment. For 2 weeks, every time I wore something and felt good in it, comfortable, confident like myself, I made a quick note. Just a few words: soft knit, high waist, blue tones, V-neck. And slowly, a pattern started to form. I wasn't guessing anymore. I was gathering real-life clues about what I actually enjoy living in. You can do this too. No pressure to change anything today. Just observe. Let your current self tell you what works and what doesn't. Because once you know what makes you feel good, it becomes so much easier to say no to what doesn't. And in the next tip, we'll talk about why forcing yourself into a minimalist wardrobe before you're ready might actually be slowing your progress. Let's be honest, there's a lot of pressure out there to get it right when it comes to simplifying, especially with the idea of a capsule wardrobe, 10 pieces, one color palette, perfectly interchangeable. It sounds lovely, in theory. I tried it. After a massive declutter, I looked at what was left and thought, okay, now I just need to make this work. But the truth, I didn't even like most of what I had kept. It wasn't cohesive. It wasn't me. I was trying to build a system on top of items I didn't love, and forcing myself into that minimalist box only made me feel stuck again. So here's what I've learned: you don't need to rush into curating the perfect wardrobe. You don't have to have all the answers yet. You're allowed to pause, to live with less for a while, to rent, to rotate, to take your time rebuilding with intention. Decluttering isn't about reaching aesthetic perfection. It's about removing the friction between you and your everyday life. And that brings us to one final habit, something simple, small, and consistent. A way to keep clutter from quietly creeping back in. Finally, let's talk about what happens after the big declutter. Because as peaceful as it feels when everything's in place, clutter has a quiet way of sneaking back in through one item, one pile, one corner at a time. What's helped me most isn't a system or a label maker, it's 10 minutes. Every evening when the house is settling and the day is done, I do a gentle reset. One drawer, one surface, one small category. Sometimes it's folding 2 shirts. Sometimes it's tossing old receipts from my bag. It's never dramatic, but it always shifts something. Because this isn't about being tidy. It's about building trust with yourself again. You don't need a massive cleaning day. You just need a rhythm that makes the mess feel temporary, not permanent. And in 10 minutes, you can remind yourself, I live here. I care for this space. I get to shape it back a little at a time. Now let's take a breath and bring all of this home. I once spent an entire Saturday trying to organize my beauty cabinet. I had little bins, dividers, even a label maker ready. But as I started pulling things out, I realized half the items weren't even mine anymore. There were hotel mini bottles I kept just in case guests came, a curling wand I hadn't touched in 4 years, expired self-tanners, 3 unused nail kits, and 6 lipsticks in shades I never wore. But I kept arranging them, lining them up, trying to make it look neat until I finally asked myself, why am I organizing things I don't even like? That moment changed everything. Now, before I reach for storage bins, I pause. I ask, do I even use this? Do I enjoy owning this? Or am I just making it look tidy to avoid deciding I let go of the whole idea that organization is always the next step? Sometimes the real shift is skipping the organizing altogether because what you really need is just less. Since then, I've done this in my kitchen drawer full of mismatched lids, in my craft cabinet with 40 dried up glue sticks, and even in my inbox. Organizing isn't always progress, it's often just procrastination in prettier form. One year, I convinced myself I needed a new closet system. I went online, ordered fancy velvet hangers, matching baskets, even those slim drawer inserts. But when it all arrived, the mess was still there. I had just made it look nicer. That's when it hit me I had bought storage to avoid sorting. I wanted the feeling of progress without actually making decisions. Now I make myself do this one thing: I don't buy any storage baskets or containers until I've decluttered the space first. The difference: When I cleared out my entryway cabinet before shopping, I found 3 umbrellas, 2 broken flashlights, and a pile of reusable bags I didn't even know I had. When I tackled my bathroom drawer without buying anything first, I realized I didn't need drawer organizers, I just needed to throw out 10 dried mascaras and 3 old razors. Even in the pantry, I used to think I needed tiered shelves and matching jars. Turns out, I just had 5 bags of rice I forgot were already in there. Now I shop with purpose. Sometimes I realize I don't need anything at all. And if I do need a bin or basket, it's because I'm making space for something that's already clear, useful, and wanted. This one came from pure survival. I was tired of walking through my house and feeling like it exploded overnight. Shoes by the door, mail on the counter, a jacket flung over a chair, half a coffee mug abandoned in the bathroom. It wasn't that I didn't care. I was just moving fast, and every item I set down was a tiny, invisible decision. I'll deal with it later. So I tried something new, a 2-second pause. Just before I dropped the mail, I asked, "Can I toss the junk now instead of stacking it? Is this bill something I can handle in under 3 minutes?" Before I left my shoes in the hallway, I asked, "Would it take me 10 seconds to put them away?" Before I tossed a sweater on the back of the chair, I asked, "Do I want to look at this again tomorrow morning, days?" That pause doesn't feel like a big deal, but over time, it changed how my home felt. I wasn't always cleaning anymore. I was simply catching myself in the moment. It's not about being perfect. It's about interrupting the autopilot that leads to clutter. Now I don't end the day wondering how the mess appeared. I see it as it's forming, and that gives me a chance to stop it before it grows. If you're craving a home that takes less from you and gives more peace back, try just one of these changes. You don't need to overhaul everything to feel better. I've also created a separate video on how to declutter specific areas of your home one zone at a time. You might want to check that out next. And if any part of this video helped you breathe a little easier, consider liking or subscribing. It lets me know what truly supports you. And don't miss tomorrow's video. It's a quiet deep dive into the little things tidy people do without even realizing. You might recognize a few, and a few might completely shift how your home feels by the end of the day. It's the kind of episode you'll wish you had found sooner.